You don't have to browse through 10 pages to get to know where you will be able to deboard and get into another mine. So it became a standard for metros across the world, this kind of a simple visual representation. So it gives you all the information. It gives you color coded different lines. It gives you the points where you can board. It gives you the point where the connections can happen between different lines, right? So this is simplification of, this is a lot of data, trust me. It has, so much of data, but in a simple visual representation, okay? So when you are representing data, you have to think about how can I creatively demystify and simplify my data representation, okay? So this is another type of charts that came about in the evolution of various charts that we see. These are called Chernoff faces, and what they do is they use our ability to look at the face and understand the spot. Not so popular, but one of the ways that data visualization is used. This is another interesting way. They have used poppy flowers, and the size of the poppy flowers talks about what was the, so this is the number of deaths so these are various wars that have happened and how many people have died in those wars. The poppy flowers are used to show the martyrs in each of these wars. Data, if you just put a dump of data, it is very confusing, and it may not be relatable immediately, but when you put a visual, it is very relatable, okay? So I want to show you a video of a master storyteller with data. It's a favorite video of mine, and then we'll go back and look at how you can use storytelling. So this is Professor Hans Rosling, and he uses a very simple case study to describe, to show us what data storytelling should look like, okay?
About 10 years ago, I took on the task to teach global development to Swedish undergraduate students. That was after having spent about 20 years together with African institutions studying hunger in Africa. So I was sort of expected to know a little about the world. And I started in our medical university, Karolinska Institute, an undergraduate course called Global Health. But when you get that opportunity, you get a little nervous. I thought, these students coming to us actually have the highest grade you can get in Swedish college system, so I thought maybe they know everything I'm going to teach them about. So I did a pre-test when they came, and one of the questions from which I learned a lot was this one: which country has the highest child mortality of these 5 pairs? And I put them together so that in each pair of country, one has twice the child mortality of the other. And this means that it's much bigger the difference than the uncertainty of the data. I won't put you at a test here, but it's Turkey, which is highest there, Poland, Russia, Pakistan, and South Africa. And these were the results of the Swedish students. I did it so I got a confidence interval which was pretty narrow, and I got happy, of course. I had 1.8 right answer out of 5 possible. And that means that there was a place for a professor of international health and for my course. But one late night, when I was compiling the report, I really realized my discovery. I have shown that Swedish top students know statistically significantly less about the world than the chimpanzees. Because the chimpanzee would score half right. If I gave them 2 bananas with Sri Lanka and Turkey, they would be right half of the cases. But the students are not there. The problem for me was not ignorance, it was preconceived ideas. I did also an unethical study of the professors of the Karolinska Institute that hands out the Nobel Prize in medicine, and they are on par with the chimpanzee there. So this is where I realized that there was really a communicate, because the data of what's happening in the world and the child health of every country is very well aware. So we did this software which displays it like this. Every bubble here is a country. This country over here is China, and this is India. The size of the bubble is the population, and on this axis here I put fertility rate. Because my students, what they said when they looked upon the world, and I asked them, what do you really think about the world? Huh? Well, I first discovered that the textbook was Tintin mainly. And they said the world is still we and them. And we is Western world, and them is third world. And what do you mean with Western world? I said, well, that's long life in small family, and third world is short life in large family. So this is what I could display here. I put fertility rate here, number of children per woman, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to about 8 children per woman. We have very good data since 1962, 1960 about, on the size of families in all countries. The arrow margin is narrow. Here I put life expectancy at birth, from 30 years in some countries up to about 70 years. And 1962, there was really a group of countries here that was industrialized countries, and they had small families and long lives. And these were the developing countries. They had large families and they had relatively short lives. Now, what has happened since 1962? We want to see the change. Are the students right? It's still two types of countries? Or have these developing countries got smaller families and they live here? Or have they got longer lives and live up there? Let's see. We stop the world. And this is all UN statistic that has been available. Here we go. Can you see there? It's China. They are moving against better health. They are improving there. All the green Latin American countries, they are moving towards smaller families. The yellow ones here are the Arabic countries, and they get larger families, but longer lives, but not larger families. The Africans are the green down here. They still remain here. This is India. Indonesia is moving on pretty fast. And in the 80s here, you have Bangladesh still among the African countries there, but not Bangladesh. It's a miracle that happens in the 80s. The imams start to promote family planning, and they move up into that corner. And in 90s, we have the terrible HIV epidemic that takes down the life expectancy of the African countries, and all the rest of the world moves up into the corner where we have long lives and small family, and we have a completely new world. Let me make a comparison directly between United States of America and Vietnam. 1964. America had small families and long life. Vietnam had large families and short lives. And this is what happens. The data during the war indicate that even with all the death, there was an improvement of life expectancy. By the end of the year, the family planning started in Vietnam, and they went for smaller families. And the United States up there is getting for longer life, keeping family size. And in the 80s now, they give up communist planning and they go for market economy, and it moves faster even than social life. And today we have in Vietnam the same life expectancy and the same family size here in Vietnam 2003 as in United States 1974 by the end of the war. I think we all, if we don't look in the data, we underestimate the tremendous change in Asia, which was in social change before we saw the economical change. So let's move over to another way here in which we could display the distribution in the world of the income. This is the world distribution of income of people. $1, $10, or $100 per day. There's no gap between rich and poor any longer. This is a myth. There's a little hump here. But there are people all the way. And if we look where the income ends up, the income, this is 100% of world's annual income. And the richest 20%, they take out of that about 74%. And the poorest 20%, they take about 2%. And this shows that the concept developing countries is extremely doubtful. We sort of think about aid, like these people here giving aid to these people here. But in the middle, we have most of the world population, and they have now 24% of the income. We heard it in other forms. And who are these? Where are the different countries? I can show you Africa. This is Africa. 10% of world population, most in poverty. This is OECD, the rich country, the country club of the UN. And they are over here on this side, and quite an overlap between Africa and OECD. And this is Latin America. It has everything on this earth, from the poorest to the richest in Latin America. And on top of that, we can put East Europe, we can put East Asia, and we put South Asia. And how did it look like if we go back in time to about 1970? Then there was more of a hump. And we have most who lived in absolute poverty were Asians. The problem in the world was the poverty in Asia. And if I now let the world move forward, you will see that while population increase, there are hundreds of millions in Asia getting out of poverty, and some others get into poverty. And this is the pattern we have today. And the best projection from the World Bank is that this will happen. And we will have a divided world. We will have most people in the middle. Of course, it's a logarithmic scale here, but our constant growth with percent, we look at a possibility of percentage increase. If I change these and I take GDP per capita instead of family income, and I turn these individual data into regional data of gross domestic product, and I take the regions down here, the size of the bubble is still the population, and you have the OECD there, and you have sub-Saharan Africa there, and we take off the Arab states there, coming both from Africa and from Asia, and we put them separately, and we can expand this axis, and I can give it a new dimension here by adding the social values there, child survival. Now I have money on that axis, and I have the possibility of children to survive there. In some countries, 99.7% of children survive to 5 years of age, others only 70. And here it seems that there is a gap between OECD, Latin America, East Europe, East Asia, Arab states, South Asia, and sub-Saharan Africa. The similarity is very strong between child survival. But let me split sub-Saharan Africa. This is there, and better health is up there. I can go here, and I can split sub-Saharan Africa into its countries. And when it bursts, the size of each country bubble is the size of the population. Sierra Leone down there, Mauritius up there. Mauritius was the first country to get away with trade barriers, and they could sell their sugar, they could sell their textiles on equal terms as the people in Europe and North America. There's a huge difference between Africa, and Ghana is here in the middle. In Sierra Leone, humanitarian aid. Here in Uganda, development aid. Here, time to invest. There you can go for holiday. It's a tremendous variation within Africa, which we very often make that it's equal everything. I can split South Asia here. India is the big bubble in the middle, but huge difference between Afghanistan and Sri Lanka. And I can split Arab states. How are they? Same climate, same culture, same religion, huge difference. Even between neighbors. Yemen, civil war, United Arab Emirates money, which was quite equally and well used. Not as the myth is. And that includes all the children of the foreign workers who are in the country. Data is often better than you think. Many people say that data is bad. There's an uncertainty margin. But we can see the difference here, Cambodia, Singapore. The differences are much bigger than the weakness of the data. East Europe, Soviet economy for a long time, but they come out after 10 years very, very differently. And there is Latin America. Today we don't have to go to Cuba to find a healthy country in Latin America. Chile will have a lower child mortality than Cuba within some few years from now. And here we have high-income countries in OECD, and we get the whole pattern here of the world, which is more or less like this. And if we look at it, how it looks the world, in 1960, it starts to move, 1960. This is Mao Zedong. He brought health to China. And then he died, and then Deng Xiaoping came and brought money to China and brought them into the mainstream again. And we have seen how countries move in different directions like this. So it's sort of difficult to get an example country which shows the pattern of the world. But I would like to bring you back to about here at 1960, and I would like to compare.
You can actually go back and look at this video in its entirety. But the idea was really subject which is talking about development, how the data can be really used to talk about what is the specific problem. If I were to just give you a data of all countries, and I have that raw data with me, if I were to just give you that, for you to sit and make a sense of it would take you some time. But when you see something like this, immediately you start understanding what he's talking about, how the data is now making more sense. Okay, so that is the power of data visualization. So what are the key elements of data visualization? Data can be represented in multiple ways, in charts, graphs, tables, and matrices. And there are conceptual frameworks. We'll talk about some of those conceptual frameworks that are available. And don't worry, there are enough tools that will help you, but you need to know what is it that you are trying to communicate, right? Who are you trying to communicate? Suppose I am a startup, right? And I have to, let's say, present my findings to a potential customer. My narrative will be slightly different. The data, more or less, underlying data will be same, but what I'm trying to tell the customer will be different. Versus if I'm talking to the investor, right? The investor has a different view. The narrative will be different. Versus if I am trying to present this in a large forum where I want to showcase my innovation, my narrative will be different, right? It is the same underlying data that I'm using, but I'm creating different narratives, right? So that is the important thing. And you have various tools and frameworks available to look at how you use data, right? So, like I said, a chart you can get that chart in like minutes. You just go into any of the AI tools and ask it to create a fancy visual chart of your data. You'll get the chart, right? But what is fundamental is this: what to say, why to say, and how to say. Okay, so those are the important part of your data storytelling. You can be sitting on loads of data, right? But how does it matter unless you're able to say what is that you want to communicate about that data? It could be your research data, it could be data related to some analysis that you're doing, or data related to some customer that you are working with, right? Why to say? What is the reason to say whatever you want to say, right? You want to create some sense of urgency or purpose, right? And then how to say it, right? What are the various ways? What are the various charts? What are the various words that you want to use to create the most impact? So here is the example of a telecom industry wants to understand the share of mobile phone usage in the Indian market. Okay, so there are 3 charts available here: chart A, chart B, chart C. Which one would you prefer to use? Yeah, chart A. Why? So why not a B or a C? It is the share of the market that you have is why the pie chart is being used. Okay, fair enough. All right. Let's look at another example. Annual visit to a hospital by age groups. So different age groups go to the hospital, and this is the number of annual visits. So which chart would you use here? Chart ABC, which one would you use? Chart C. Okay, why? Why? When is a line chart typically used? C trend, huh? So when is typically a line chart kind of a thing used? Pattern of what? Where have you most often seen a line chart? Stock market. So what is that stock market thing? What is the chart? What is the x-axis in stock market? Time, right? So a line chart is typically used when you are seeing something over a period of time. Okay. So now there are two charts, A and B. Okay. So what's happening in A and what's happening in B? What is the difference? Spot the difference. One of you, one of you can tell me what is chart A and what chart B. In B, you have by age group, you have the chart. And what's happening in chart A? Okay, which is better? B is better? Yeah, B is better because you have the age, and by age you can see the number of visits. Versus there, you may wanting to show some decreasing order, but the x-axis is not sorted, so it will not give the right interpretation. So a sorted always is a key thing to putting together a chart. Okay, always remember line chart, you were all right, it shows a trend and a pattern, but it's usually over a period of time. And stock market, stock index is a very classic case of showing, representation of a trend over a period of time. Okay. Here, key improvements suggested by users for online movie ticket booking site. So let's say this is Book My Show, and they collected some feedback, faster booking time, enhanced security, simple process, easier allocation, payment by cash, etc., etc. So which chart is better in this case? A, B, C? C? Why? Why not B? See, the other thing is that fundamentally our human brain is also tuned in a certain way when we look at a visual. Okay, there are some fundamental biases we have about how we see things. What becomes first thing that is obvious to us? Okay, so there is a whole science which is called behavioral economics. Okay, which looks at how brain makes decisions about money, and they use that for creating campaigns and use the weaknesses of your brain to make you do certain things. Okay, because over in the whole evolution of mankind, uh, we have learned how to protect ourselves against danger. We know how to eat and all of that, but finance is something which is relatively new. Okay, so the human evolution hasn't happened to understand all kind of financial instruments that are there. It's very difficult for us to make financial decisions. Okay, and that is why we are so reliant on people that understand finance and help us guide, etc. Most of us are a little handicapped in making financial decisions. Okay, so they use that part of the brain's bias about understanding finances to create campaigns. So here in this case, which is a better visual? B, C? Somebody said C. Why C? Please look at the problem statement. Key improvements suggested by users for an online movie ticket. So if you are the company that has taken this feedback and you want to focus on improvement, which chart will help you do that? C, right? C is sorted by the number of people who are giving feedback about a particular area, right? So you say faster booking time is the biggest concern. 40% of people are talking about faster booking time. So if you were to put some money into improving your website, you would put your money on increasing the making the booking time faster than what it is today, right? So a sorted graph like this, where you're trying to understand the reasons for a problem, will help you quickly identify and focus on that. Okay, so that is why chart C is more relevant. So this is somebody put a chart for this just for the heck of putting a chart on a slide, right? But you don't need a chart or any other visual form. You just need the number itself. So a lot of times you don't need a chart. Just the numbers in certain color coded form, okay, with highlights, with some numbers in bold, can make the numbers stand out, and the viewer's attention can be drawn just to that number. It is okay sometimes to put data in a tabular format, because there is no other chart that will give a better representation. But the table itself is a good input. But what you can do is you can either color code, right, put extra highlights, or bold the numbers and call out the numbers in a manner that they pop out, and you can focus your conversation around those numbers. Okay, so takeaways pop out like this. Okay, now again here the colors are a little muted, but you could use bolder colors to make the numbers pop out. So this is another way to make the numbers pop out, by highlighting what is it that you want to specifically talk about. Okay. This is another way where you can use, these are also called heat maps. I don't know how many of you have heard the word called heat maps, right? Heat map is something that has come up from representation of weather, etc., where you look at various zones and what is the temperature in those zones. So you use colors to represent the temperature. So if I am talking about, let's say, sales performance, okay, or my deliverables for the year, I can use a heat map to show which is warmer, which is cold. Let's say I'm having a sales discussion, and I can use various territories, and I can talk about where the sales is doing very well, and that will has a higher heat in terms of performance. Sales regions which are very cold can have a different color to say these regions are cold. So I can use heat maps as well to represent my data. Again, the idea is never to use the visual just for the sake of a visual. Okay, the visual has to have some kind of an impact on the story that you're trying to tell with the data. So here in this case, right, there is the north, south, east, west are the territories. There is company A and company B. What are the ways in which you can represent this data? What are the various charts that you can use for representing this data? Pie chart. Pie chart, if you have to compare, how will you do that? You will put two pies. Okay. And then bar charts. Stacked bar or bars which are next to each other? Next to each other. Okay. So let's look at, they have also tried to use line chart, but that's not really a great chart. So somebody said pie, somebody said bar, there is stacked bar. So please use a little bit of science in the selection of how you do. What is the message? What is the comparison that you want to do? And what is the chart form that you will use? There are guidelines, typically, so this is the kind of a comparison that you're trying to do, and these are the basic chart types, and you can select the particular chart. So there is frequency. If you remember, we had seen frequency of responses. That's where you use a bar chart. And then time series data, typically you use a line chart. Okay. We also spoke about conceptual frameworks. So these are some of the conceptual frameworks that are there. You have MAP. Today it's very popular. I don't know how many of you work in the government sector, but if you're an administrator and you want to show from state level to district level performance, you typically will use the Karnataka map, then highlight your district, and then you look at district level performance. So that's a very interesting way, especially if you're doing a geographical comparison. Okay. Network maps. Network maps are typically used when you're working with big data and you want to show the connections, right? How many of you are data scientists? I assume most of you are data scientists. When you're trying to find, when you're doing exploratory data analysis, right? When you're first looking at the data, using networks can help you identify the connections between the various data points. Let's say you're doing something like a cluster analysis, right? Cluster analysis, you can group, you can identify the clusters within your data and some kind of linkages within each of those clusters. Time series is a very classic case, especially when you're looking at data over a period of time. You use time series. Hierarchical charts and flow charts. Flow charts look at movement and exchange of data between various groups. Matrix charts typically look at composition of the overall data, and infographic is actually a way you tell the story of the data. Okay, and then you have process maps. All of you use this when you're doing your PowerPoint, right? These are charts that are available to you, and there is process, timeline, sequence, and listing with components. One of the common mistakes we have seen is that people force a particular type of chart and create charts without really knowing what those charts represent. Okay, please understand what the chart represents, what is it trying to show before force fitting any of your data to it, because it will not convey what you want to convey. Eventually, all of this is for us to communicate about our data. Okay, flowcharts are very simple. All of us have used flowcharts, where typically you want to talk about various steps and you want to talk about the decision elements and how the decision elements available. So this is an example where they are looking at transaction order sequence and various elements. These kind of charts are typically very useful if you're trying to understand an entire process and where are the checks in the process, where are the decision elements in the process, and especially from a data perspective. If there is some issue in the data, you can identify where in this overall process of data collection certain issue might be happening. Okay, for example, all of you fill forms, right, where data is being asked. In some places, for example, in your address field, they don't ask you to put your PIN code. Okay, but if I am going to do some kind of data analysis based on the PIN code, and I'm going to use that data to geographically map people, if I don't enforce some discipline during data collection, I am going to get bad data and I will not be able to do the analysis. So when the data collection is happening, they will put some kind of checks to make sure people are entering the correct PIN code, or they will make it a mandatory field. Without that input, it will not move forward. In some places, when telephone numbers are being collected, right, people will put some junk telephone number. So what they do as a check, especially if it's a financial dealing, they will actually make a call to the phone or a message to the phone. Typically, you get an OTP on your phone, right? The OTP is a way to validate whether you have given the right phone number or not. Okay, so at the data collection time itself, you are making sure you don't get junk data, you get good data. In the past, people used to not have those kind of checks and balances on data collection. Even today, when you physically collect data, right, suppose we ask you to give feedback, right? Depending on what state you are in, if you want to get back home early and you're done with the day here, the type of feedback you will give also will be dependent on that. You may just put tick, tick, tick on everything and be done with it, right? But if I want to get good feedback data from you, I'll make sure that I put some incentive for you to give me that good data, right? So in the past, people used to manually take the data, and that data used to be junk. And if you are the one who's analyzing that data, you're working with that junk data, and it will create a lot of problem for you. So you will see the journey. People start, if somebody started with hard copy data collection, over a period of time, they would have significantly improved that data collection, and they would have put all the checks and balances to make sure good data comes in. All of us know that garbage in, garbage out, right? And data collection is the most expensive thing. It's very difficult to collect data. Most people are not willing to give data, and that is why now there are so many automated processes, right? People don't have to, it requires certain effort, and that effort doesn't give us the incentive, so we are not willing to give data. Okay, so you have to make sure you get good data, and you make sure it's an easy process whenever you're doing the data collection, right? So this flowchart will help you understand what your process is, where is the data coming from, and what might be potential issues. These are critical path kind of visual representation. Typically, this is used in, this kind of critical path visualization is used where? Correct, Gantt chart, right? Gantt chart is a classic example of a critical path. So if you are doing a project, you want to understand various steps, what are the critical pathways, what ends first and what comes next, what are overlapping tasks, etc. How many of you have used a Gantt chart? Good. So for those of you who haven't used, you should try to use, especially when you're managing projects, because it helps in very easy communication with a larger group of people if you're working. If you just put that chart, it has a start and end date, and there that visual will tell you what are the overlapping tasks and when are each task supposed to end. Okay, so that's a critical path. This is something called a product life cycle kind of a chart, where you look at what is the various stages of. Now this is a very simple chart, but you can add more detail, and this becomes very easy to communicate with people when you're doing a product development kind of thing. This is a progression chart. Most of these kind of charts are available in the commonly used tools that you have. And here typically, again, this is used for task tracking. If you have certain tasks and there is a progressive set of tasks that you have to do, this helps in the tracking of the task. Okay. This is something called map of influences. Okay. So here you talk about what is the underlying concept, and then what is the concept that surrounds it, etc. Today, I don't know how many of you have children that go to school. The children are now taught, mind mapping. Especially if they are looking at large concepts, they actually have to draw mind maps. What does mind map do? Mind map typically starts with a concept, and it links to how your brain thinks about all of those concepts, right? And it connects the dots. So let's say if I throw a word plant, right? What are all the concepts that will come to you from a plant perspective, right? You'll think of parts of plants, types of plants, photosynthesis, right? And if you put a bunch of kids and you ask them to talk about plant, you can have all these various concepts that are linked to different types. So types of plants, right? That could be one large concept area, and you could have multiple ways in which your mind is thinking about the types of plant, right? So that's called a mind mapping. Typically, it is used in a brainstorming, ideation kind of a stage. So if your team is working on a problem that you want to solve, a mind map is a very good way to look at that. So you start with the problem and let people talk about that problem, and it can go anywhere. But then if you start mapping them, you'll see how they all connect and form together. So this is again a similar kind of a concept where you look at the map of influences. What is your core concept and what are things around that? These are decision trees. Okay, decision trees are things that take a form of a tree. It starts with a main node and then keeps breaking, and each of your node can break into subnodes, and then you create an entire decision map. Okay, so for example, here the case is you want to interview candidates. Okay, so what are the steps? Job description, candidates for interview, final candidates, candidate rejected after interview, and then you have candidates for interview, final candidates. Okay, so this is one way of data visualization. Okay, there is something called cause and effect. It's also called fishbone. Okay, so you have a problem, and there are multiple reasons why that problem can happen, and you put them into broad categories. Why it's called a fishbone? Because it looks like a fishbone, right? So the car won't start is example here, and there could be multiple reasons why the car won't start. Yeah. So have you all heard this story of a car not starting? Yeah, I'll tell you the story. Since I'm a storyteller, I should at least tell one story. So there was this gentleman in the US. He had a very high-end car. Okay, and the customer service kept getting a letter from his car, from this gentleman. And the letter said that my car won't start when I buy vanilla ice cream. My car doesn't like vanilla ice cream. And because these were high-end cars, each customer is treated specially. So they can't ignore the letter from the customer. So the technician, he went to this guy's house and he said, okay, let's see what happens. So they went to the superstore near his house, and they bought vanilla ice cream and came out, and the car didn't start. Okay, so second day they come again, and then he goes to buy another flavor of ice cream just to say that the car doesn't like vanilla. So they go and buy some chocolate ice cream. Okay, and they come back, and the car starts. Okay, the third day they come back again, buy vanilla ice cream, the car doesn't start. So yes, the car doesn't seem to like vanilla ice cream. Okay. So a lot of us also don't like vanilla ice cream, myself included. It's just plain vanilla, right? So now the person goes back to his technical team and says, hey, there's really some problem here, and I have collected the data for this one week. Every time this man bought vanilla ice cream, the car didn't start, and every time he bought some other flavor of ice cream, the car started. So one team goes to the shop from where this man buys ice cream, and they look at the layout of the whole store. Okay, vanilla ice cream apparently being a popular choice and people picking it up fast, is placed in an aisle close to the billing station. Okay, so they have this refrigerator near the billing counter where people pick up, so, and it is stocked with people's preferences, what people like most. And then you have to go back to the back of the store aisle where the rest of the ice cream flavors are kept. Okay, so he has to walk some distance to get that ice cream and come back. So apparently in automobiles there is a problem called vapor lock. Okay, so when he stops the car and gets out and buys vanilla ice cream and comes back, that vapor would not have cooled, and there would be a so the ignition, the combustion doesn't happen because the vapor is still in that. Uh, all of you understand automobiles, right? When we start, right, there is the fuel comes out and it has to be ignited, and that's how the thing. So the vapor lock was what was causing the car not to start because of the vanilla ice cream. That was a technical problem. Okay, so they went back, the technicians went back and solved for that problem. So if they had rejected that letter saying that my car doesn't like vanilla ice cream and not looked into it, the technical problem in that car would have stayed and maybe escalated into something different, right? So a cause and effect is exactly that. There is some problem, my car is not starting. You have to go and investigate what is happening here, okay? So similarly, there's another case where uh, somebody found out that they were doing data analysis, some data scientist, and they found out that uh, people buy, a lot of you might have heard this story, they buy beer and diapers together. Okay, so the store was not able to understand why people are buying beer and diapers together. What is this combination? Uh, how many of you know association rules? So association rules is a technique where you try to understand the association between different data groups, right? So here was a rare data group. I can understand bread, milk, butter. I can understand, maybe milk and vanilla, or something. Maybe I want to make ice cream at home, or some combinations. But there was this combination of beer and diapers, which people didn't understand what was happening here. Okay, so then they went back and looked at the data, and the reason for that is that typically on a game night in the US, people watch a lot of sports. We also watch a lot of sports, but it's a watching sports is a big thing. So the guy, when he's going out to get his beer, his wife tells him to pick up diapers as well. So there's a rush. So there is always the beer and diapers combination that is there. And how these patterns are used, they are used in the design of the shop floor of the store, right? You make sure these items are available together. So typically, if you look at most store designs, right, there is something called impulse buying. When you come to the billing counter, they will have kept some things, small things, not big things, small things that you can pick up in your hand and put into your basket. You have no need for those things. You didn't want to buy them. You came to the store to buy certain things. But just because you are standing at the billing line and you have nothing else to do and you are looking around, they've kept a basket with these small things, and you pick and put in your basket. Especially if you have a kid with you, they would have put all these nice chocolate thingies, right, that you'll pick. It's a strategy, it's a marketing strategy, right? And how did somebody come up with these strategies? Because they use the data and analyze the data, that when you have that time of 5 minutes and you are standing and you don't have anything to do, get your, and it should not be something heavy to lift, you will not lift it. It should be something easy that you can just put into your basket, right? And it also satisfies some craving, which is typically a chocolate or something like that, right? So this is how data is used for decision making, right? And when you are narrating the data, these are the kind of things that should come out of your data narration. Okay, so this is what I was talking about, mind maps. You have a large concept and you break down that concept into different things, and then you talk about what these different, this helps especially if you're starting with a big problem and you don't know where to focus, and there could be a group which has varied ideas. You could break it down and let it be a free flow. You allow people to talk whatever they want to talk, but you connect them back all into the various concepts and see where you want to focus your attention on. So this is also a visual representation of data, right? When you are brainstorming, when you are having meetings, it is very important to capture all that knowledge. See what happens when both of us talk, let's say, right? We'll share a lot of things, But when we walk away from that meeting, we forget at least 50% of that. But some important things would have been shared. So a concept like this can capture everything that's being spoken and put it on paper so that you can go back and look at what all were there and what were some of the important things that got discussed. So it's a very powerful tool for capturing overall conversations, right? This is another interesting way to look at humble pie chart, with an additional visual can now give you a better representation of the data that you are looking at, okay? This is another interesting visual representation. Instead of bars, you're using a beer mug, and the size of the mug is the quantity that you're representing, okay? So this is this is a bar chart actually. It's just that you have replaced the bar with a mug, beer mug, to show the beer consumption in the world. It's more appealing. This is something that all of you would have seen, the Magic Quadrant. The Magic Quadrant also typically is trying to place organizations from their strengths and weakness perspective. This is also a very good visual representation to understand. If this were represented in a bar chart or any of those other chart, it would have not created so much impact. But this now really tells us where all these companies are, where is their position, what is their strength, and what is their current offering, etc. This is another type of the same thing, right? Magic Quadrant. So data, if you're just visualizing the data, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find out what is the data telling me, right? And all the infographics are essentially a way where you're telling the story. You have found out what's happening with the data and you are telling the story, okay? Simple is always better. We all love to complicate things, okay? We don't like simple. Simple is very difficult, okay? Given any problem, you'll complicate it. You'll create so many things, right? And you'll make it's very, very complicated. Simple is better always because it's easy for the other party to understand. More is better. Give more information, more insight, not more complex visuals, but more information and insight. Different is better. Yes, it will strike. For example, the bar chart with beer mugs is different, and it clearly communicates to me what is the message. Creativity is always better. But don't overcomplicate things. Don't spend too much time trying to create the best visual in the world. That's not what this is all about. This is all about communicating the story of the data. Okay. So this is cents per pound of PVC with other material, right? Cents per cubic inch. Depending on what I am trying to achieve here, right? Am I trying to understand cents per cubic inch, per pound? Where am I using this information? Please use the relevant chart. Who are you trying to? For one person, this cubic inch might be a little more complicated because that's not the usual jargon they use for buying these things, and cents per pound might be a better thing. So how are you, let's say, if I don't use the PVC example, and let's say I use bananas, right? So banana, cost of banana per banana, dozen banana, crate of banana, what is the measure that you want to use to represent the data? Make sure you understand what your audience. So here the more is better, right? You have a company that does earth moving equipment, and you want to talk about what all technology, what is the process they have. So as much detail you give here, you'll be able to compare the two companies and understand who is giving you a better service offering, okay? So this is a comparison kind of a chart where you are looking at cost structure by market segment. Instead of using a bar chart which is above the line, you're using a line below to show this breakup of this 100, right? 45, 46, 9. So your variable is 45, base is 46, and that is 9, right? It's a slightly different way to represent the data. You are breaking it up. Instead of a pie chart, you are using a whole bar and breaking up the cost into smaller bars, okay? So different can be better. And this is, like I said, geographical information about, this is unemployment across America kind of a chart. So it tells the data in a slightly different manner. So let's see the abuse also. Sometimes people, so this is somebody created a pie chart, right? Any information I'm getting out of this, it's just too complicated. Too much data has been put into a pie chart. This is not the greatest chart, right? So yes and no. Why do they need a pie chart, right? So a lot of people do that. They just put a chart because you're supposed to do data visualization. There is an issue here. What is the issue? Total should add up to 100, right? But it's not adding up there, and they put it into a pie chart, right? And you will see such mistakes a lot of times. So there was once an article in Times of India which said that average Indian spends 3,000 rupees on hair care. And I was like, who is this average Indian? Show me this average Indian. Yeah, average Indian, a lot of average Indians don't even, earn that kind of a money. So what happens then? There is a certain sample you're using, and you're using that. It's very skewed, right? So you can't call them average Indian, right? So you have to show what was your sample, who are you talking to, where did you collect this from, this data? And you'll see these stories all the time, right? And if you're a hair care company that wants to do business in India, you'll say, wow, 3,000 rupees every month Indians are spending on hair care, let me go to India and do business. But that's not really the truth, right? How many of us spend that kind of money on hair care alone? So the sample, you have to describe what your sample is. Who were the people that you spoke to? Data cannot be used for misrepresentation. Okay, as data scientists, very easily we can massage the data and only tell what we want to tell. Please don't do that. Be as truthful to what the underlying data is telling, right? You can always hide only a particular, you can hide the whole thing and show only a particular part of the data, and that's the story you can say, but that's not. So here you see there is promise and result, and they put a gap. That's a very wrong representation of a Venn diagram, correct? So here they put some bubbles, okay, and the size of the bubbles just don't make any sense, okay. They just wanted to inflate United States of America, and they put the biggest bubble there, but it's not to scale, okay. So this is another kind of a chart where they have some timeline, and then they have some why the college have to cost so much. It's actually, the line is dropping there, whereas the cost actually has increased. So it doesn't represent what they are trying to say, okay. So here is again the heat map kind of a data, but you're talking about snowfall and you're using colors like green. Yeah, it just doesn't help understand snowfall. Green has a different connotation. All of us associate colors with some things, right? So you can't use the wrong colors to show the wrong thing. Yeah, I think that's about it. This is broadly what I had to say about data visualization and storytelling. Quick questions. Anybody has any questions? No questions? I'll ask a question. Infographic, where you are combining data and information and telling a story. So that's a telling story kind of a thing. Just data visualization, you are summarizing the data and trying to identify what is the story in the data. A lot of time when you're doing exploratory analysis, you want to put the visual out there and say, okay, let's find out what is the story here. Infographic, you have found the story and you're summarizing, and you're using both visuals and words to narrate the story of the data. See, traditional tools, there are a lot of tools, data visualization tools. Every reporting tool is a data visualization tool. Tableau, for example, is one of the more popular ones that have a lot of visualization capabilities. When you're working with large data, use some kind of visual tools that will quickly help you understand what are some of the patterns in the data. If it is time series, use a line chart to understand, plot it over the period of time to understand what are the patterns. Typical patterns could be there is a trend, right? Or there is a seasonality. Let's say you're looking at sales data over a period of 24 months, right? There will be some seasonality in the data, right? And you want to identify those seasonality patterns, a line chart kind of a thing. If you want to do groups of data in a data set, right? You use something like a bubble chart that will identify those clusters of data and the overlap between the clusters and the distance between the clusters, etc. So most of the tools that you use for analyzing the data also have charting options. For example, if you're using R or SAS, all these tools have powerful charting capabilities, and you can chart your data. And it's a best representation for discussion about the initial findings of the data. Yeah. Okay, I have another 3-4 minutes. So how good are you with your problem solving skills? Good, all of you are good problem solvers? Yeah? Okay, so we'll quickly play a game since we only have 3 minutes. I always do this with all my sessions to understand the problem solving skills. Okay, the game is called 20 questions, and here it goes. The context is I will give a statement, okay, and just the statement, and you have to crack what's happened here, okay. How many of you watch crime series, CBI and those kind of things, right? So here's your opportunity to be a CBI investigator and crack this, okay. I am a hostile witness, okay. It means that I am already up my session and I want to get away from here. So my answer will be only a yes, no, maybe. I will not give lengthy answers, okay. So you have to ask your question accordingly, and we don't have time. Mr. Srinivasan is already standing, and that's a warning to us that, hey, your time is up. So we don't have the whole day to do this, yeah. So I will say the sentence once, twice for your reference, okay. We have group 1 and group 2, 2 sides. Each side can ask 10 questions, 5 minutes, not more than 5 minutes, and you have to crack the case, okay. This will show your ability to solve problems by asking questions. See, we don't ask questions, okay. Somebody once, some American guy asked me, is it a cultural thing? I said, no, it's not a cultural thing. He was a CEO and he had come to India and he wanted to meet his team and interact and ask any questions about the company, etc. But in a large town hall means the gathering of the staff of about 400 people, not a single person raised a hand and asked a question. So next time we had to plant questions. We had to identify some people and give them the question they are supposed to ask. Why don't we ask questions, okay? If you don't ask questions, you will not the question will stay in your mind and you will not find the answer, okay? So in all your sessions when people are coming here, you have to make it interactive by asking questions. So this is your chance to learn how to ask questions, okay? So here goes the statement. First time I'm going to say, second time, that's it, and we'll start. Yes, no, maybe is my answer, and you remember I'm a hostile witness, okay? Romeo and Juliet are lying dead naked on the floor. There are pieces of glass all around them, okay? Second time. Romeo and Juliet are lying dead naked on the floor. There are pieces of glass all around them. Okay? That's the statement. Now you have to find out what's happened here. All right? So group 1, you can ask your question. So we'll need somebody to keep watch on the number of questions each group. Can you do that? Yeah? So group 1, question number 1. Very quickly, we don't have time. Clock is ticking. You did it? What is the question? You're accusing me of something? Please state the question properly. Question, I need question. You can't make a statement right away. Question, what's your question? Frame it as a question. Did I do it is the question. Did you do it? No. So answer can be only yes, no, maybe. I can't give time kind of question. So you lost your question. You lost your question. This group. Both are dead. Are both dead? Please frame your question, guys. You are all fairly senior scientists and researchers and faculty and all that. Are both dead? Yes, I mean my statement said it. So you lost your second question. Huh? Blood is on the ground. Maybe. Maybe also I said, I will answer as yes, no, maybe. Yes, no, maybe. Is there any blood on the glass? Maybe. Were they alive when I reached? Yes. Yes. So 3 questions each. We'll come back to your question. 4th question. Were they drinking alcohol from the glass? No. Very innovative. One question, simple. Yes, no, maybe no. So what is, was the glass scattered near them? Yes. 4 questions each. 5th question. I'm still there. I'm a witness. So you lose your question. Was the window cracked? No. 5 questions each. Were they murdered? No. What is the question from this group? Are there many pieces of glass? Yes. Are they? Did they fight each other? No. Were there any bullets? No. 6 questions each, 4 questions remaining from both groups, and you are nowhere close to solving this. See, because please, when you are questioning, structure your questions. You are just going all over the place. You are not listening to the answers. You are asking the same kind of questions again and again. Hold on, hold on. There's some question from the back. No, no, you can ask me only one question. There can't be 2, 3 questions in the same. Are Romeo and Juliet non-human? Yes. Is there water around? Yes. Now there are just three questions remaining. Are Romeo and Juliet in a painting? Very creative. No. Are they fishes? Yes. So two questions remaining to crack what's happened. Was it killed by? Were they killed by someone? Maybe. Huh? Was that an aquarium? Yeah, maybe. Last question. Yeah, yeah, that question was already answered. So you lost your question. Last question. Someone hit the ball? Yes. But you are not close to solving. So here is why you are not able to solve it. Because when you ask questions, you have to structure your questions. First question you should ask, who are these Romeo and Juliet, right? Our fundamental bias when we hear Romeo and Juliet is we believe they are human, they are lovers, okay? They were killed by somebody, they committed suicide, they were murdered, all of these things happen. Romeo and Juliet are just nouns. Anybody can have that kind of a noun, right? That name can be used for anybody. So here in this case, I am the little girl in the house, and Romeo and Juliet are fish in a fish bowl, okay? And my mom came, she had gone out, she came and she rang the bell, and the cat in the house, in its rush to get to the door, pushed the bowl down, and the bowl is down, and Romeo and Juliet are lying dead naked on the floor, okay? So this is, at least thanks to the lady in the last row who asked the question, are they human? Yeah. So good job. If you ask that question early on, then you can crack this. Okay. So are they fishes also is fine, but then you have to tell me the whole thing, right? What's happened? How did they die, right? So and then you don't listen to others, right? In a group, you don't listen to others. Your own thought processes are going on. So you repeat the questions, right? So this is how a group operates. This is real world, right? So when you're asking questions, ask questions in a structured manner. Who, why, what, where, when, right? Those questions will help you understand exactly what is the problem that you're trying to solve. Simple, fun exercise, all right? Little deviation from the data visualization. But eventually, the data and the visual, everything is being done to solve a problem, right? That we are working towards, yeah? So thank you for the opportunity, and I hope you had a good session.
Indeed. Excellent, madam.